So if you do all of that, when the time is right, you can use all of that money that you've saved up to buy your first property. So when you're buying the first property, this is what I think you should be doing. First of all, you should be buying a property below market value. There's only one property that I've bought that's not been below market value, and it was an emotional purchase. I was moving into it. Biggest mistake I've made on property. Probably not, actually. I've made quite a few. But it was a big enough mistake that I still talk about it today, because here we are talking about it. But all my other property deals, every single one of them, I bought below market value. And you make money when you buy, not when you sell. I learned that from No Money Down, whatever the guy's name was that wrote that book. He actually went bankrupt because he said you should never sell. And I'm like, you should sell, depending on... And he never sold. Anyway, he went bankrupt. Robert... I forgot his name. Anyway, look, you should be buying properties below market value. So if you've got a property that's worth 100 and you can buy it for 80, there's £20,000 profit in there. You can do the property up. It's 110. You can now refinance it 6 months later. You can draw down 20 grand, okay, for 20 grand's worth of value that was built into it, maybe 25, maybe 30 grand. That's your deposit on property number 2. Now, the downside of that, of course, is if you refinance it, is that you can't use the refinanced money and offset it against your income, because Section 24 stops you from doing that. But buying a property below market value, almost every single property I've bought has been below market value. You could also use a sourcer to help try and find true discounts, not fake discounts. There's a lot of sources out there, don't know what they're doing, they're not insured, they're not in the PRS, they've got, they're not even a data protection, for goodness sake, but they say, I've got this property, it's worth 100, but you can have it for 80, and you go in and you go, it needs work doing. Yeah, it needs 20 grand's worth of work doing to it. Right, well, it's not worth 100, it's worth 80. Me spending 20 grand just brings it up to its market value of 100. Where's the value in that? And it's a big thing that kind of winds me up a little bit. They go, it's 100 grand, but you can have it for 70, but it needs 30 grand doing it up. Well, that's not below market value then, is it? So, however, also a lot of very good sources out there. You pay your 2 grand, your 3 grand, they're going to find you a deal that's 35% below market value, 25% below market value. Might be a big house with land on the side that you can build another house. Might be a big house that you can split into flats or into HMO and just increase your cash flow. Using property sources, I think, is a very, very good idea, as long as it's the right property sourcer. And then we're moving into adding value, which is what we just talked about, split the property into flats, move it into a HMO. Can you add a garage on the side or an extra room on the side? Can you extend the back and have skylights for the kitchen with bifold doors? And then you might want to even sell that one, because the profit that you make from that one will buy you 2 more. It just depends on the deal, okay? But you should be adding value anyway. In some way or another. Now, if you're thinking about adding value so you can refinance it, that's a brilliant idea. If you're thinking about adding value so you can get more cash flow per month, that's also a great idea. And that's something that you should be thinking about and going into more depth on. The other thing I would suggest is that when you're buying a property and when you've bought it, you're making £200-300 a month. Let's say it's 300 quid a month that you're making. Think about that. 300 quid, 10 of those properties is 3 grand a month. And for most people, that will actually pay their monthly expenses. They're now financially free, right? So just bear that in mind. You might not make 300, it might be 200 a month, and you might need 15 properties. But anyway, just bear that in mind. But when you're doing that and you're making 300 a month, what was my split? 10% goes on crypto, so 30 quid there. 30%, which is what? Is that 90? Goes paying off the mortgage. Yep. 50% of that goes into saving for a new property, and 10% will go back into your ISA, so you can continue to save ready for your next one. So move some of that money into your ISA, your savings account, whatever that happens to be, and also move some of that money over into paying down a little bit of debt. Now that, in a nutshell, in a 30-minute podcast, it's the lowest form of risk, lowest risky way of buying your first property, your second property, your next property. And I've got to tell you, folks, if you're thinking about buying property, you should do it. It is life-changing. My life is vastly different going into the age of 50 than most people's. I recognise that I'm also quite unique, special, some people might say, both in a nice way and in a not so nice way. I recognise that. I'm also a little bit weird, and I get that. I'm a little bit quirky. I get all that, okay? But I also recognise that I'm unique in that I'm one of the few who made it to get to this point, and we're not there yet. Like, for me, we're still carrying too much debt. We want to pay down some debt. We've not generated enough cash flow. We want more cash flow. There's always more, isn't there, as a property investor, as an entrepreneur. There's always more we can do. And even when we do amazing things, there's always more we want to do. We can't help it. It's our Achilles heel, and we'll work till we're 90 if we can, if possible, because we love what we do, But buying property over the next 25 years will change your life. There's absolutely no question. And I can say that, hand on my heart, because, and touching wood, because we've done it. And here we are living in Med, and it's a cold, crappy day, and it's overcast. But at 12 o'clock, the sun will come out, because that's what always happens, even when it's overcast, living here in Spain. And it's a beautiful day, and the sun makes such a big difference, and we take the dogs for a walk along the beachfront. And when it's hot again, we're living in a sunny place where tourists come on holiday. We literally live in a holiday place, and it's amazing. Not a British holiday place, I should add. It's not Benidorm. But it's life-changing. And if you can do it, and there's so many obstacles to getting to that stage, so many obstacles that will try and put you off. But when you punch through and get onto the other side, on the other side of life, on the other side of all the bad stuff, is all the good stuff. And you've got to put the effort in. It's hard. It's depressing sometimes. And you will, I remember sitting in my car shouting at the heavens, just give me a break. Because I had a boiler go, then another boiler go, then a tenant not pay, then this happened and that happened. I'm like, please. It was like all on the same day. I'm like, I'm an atheist, for goodness sake. And I'm like, ugh! Just please let me have a break so I can get through these. I remember doing it, And then the next day, the clouds cleared and the sun shone, and the tenant paid, and the boiler man fixed the boiler, and I didn't have to buy 3 new boilers that month, and I still had to pay for 2, and and here we are 15, 20 years later from that day, and life is different. And again, that's not to say that we don't have difficulties from time to time. Cash flow this month has been really, really tight. We have so many expenditures. We have 30 grand to pay out on various bits and bats, and we didn't have much of a choice on paying that lot out because it was Section 20 letters coming from the property management companies talking about balcony refurbishments and damp proofing a grade 2 listed building and all sorts of things, right? We still have those months, and so that motivates me to have even more cash flow, so when we get them next time, it's not as tight as it was this month. This month has been a tight month, and we still got through it despite it being a tight month. If that had been 15 years ago, finding 30 grand 15 years ago, that was tough, Now, that's fine. We've got that. We know where to get it from. We know what to do. We know how to pay these things off. We know how to negotiate, to have a payment plan. We know all that stuff, and that's what we implement. But to get to that point is really goddamn hard. Anyway, look, I hope that's useful for you. We'll catch up with you in the next podcast. My name's Dan Latto. Have a great day. Take care.